This is regular for Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. Please rise, and while Interim Rabbi Howard Kosofsky, Spring Hill Avenue Temple, gives an invocation and remains standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
O God, our strength and our stronghold and our salvation, fervently we invoke your blessing upon our city, our state, our country, and our nation. Guard them, O God, from calamity and injury. Suffer not their adversaries to triumph over them, but let the glories of a just, righteous, and God-fearing people increase from age to age. Enlighten with your wisdom and sustain with your power those whom the people have set in authority, our president, our governor, our mayor, our elected leaders, our counselors and advisors, our judges, lawgivers, and executives, and all who are entrusted with our safety and with the guardianship of our rights and our liberties. May peace and goodwill obtain among all the inhabitants of our land. May religion spread its blessings among us, and may it exalt our city, our state, and our nation in righteousness. Be with us, O God, even as we pray that you endow this gathering with wisdom and insight, and may the deliberations and the discussions of this place and this hour lead us all to a world perfected. May that come soon, and may it come speedily, and together let us all say, Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You get this chair from me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You don't mind. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Roll call. Vice President Manzi.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Small.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Daves. Here. Councilor Rich.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Glad to see each and every one of you. The rules of the council are as follows. First, we ask that you silence and or of any of your electronic devices. Anyone requesting to speak before the council is asked to contact the city clerk's office on the Thursday prior to the which you'd like to speak by 2 o'clock. We request that all of your subject matters be pertinent to City of Mobile business. If it's not pertinent to the City of Mobile business, then you won't be allowed the opportunity to speak. All speakers are granted 5 minutes. At the end of 4 minutes, you will hear a bell that summarizes, letting you know that that 4th minute has elapsed and that you have 60 seconds to conclude any of your commentary. We ask that you would not address any remarks to any individual council member, any individual person specifically, that all remarks be made to myself, who serves as chair. If there's anyone amongst the council that would like to respond, then they will have that opportunity to respond. Again, thank you for coming today and for your interest in your municipal government.
Approval of minutes of the meeting of February the 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Communications from the mayor.
Good morning, how's everybody?
Great, thank you.
First order of business, I'm going to call on Director Barber to recognize the Officer of the Month.
It's my pleasure to introduce Officer Mullinex to the council, who has rendered a service to the City of Mobile. On January the 8th of this year at about 10 p.m., Officer Mullinex stopped a vehicle for a switch tag in the area of Boulevard and Morgan Avenue, where the driver was found to have 5 warrants of Mobile PD, 1 out of Mobile County Sheriff's Department, 1 out of Saraland Police Department. It was also found in receipt of stolen property, which he was charged with in addition to the outstanding warrants. On January 22nd, again stopping a vehicle with a switch tag, he found the driver to have had 3 warrants for traffic violations with Mobile PD. After the vehicle, marijuana was also located, and the driver was charged with felony possession of marijuana. On January 31st, Officer Mullenix stopped another switch tag vehicle, which the driver again had a warrant for his arrest, and the other occupant in the vehicle was detained. During the search of that vehicle, a gun stolen out of Birmingham PD was located, as well as a gun stolen from Mobile Police Department, reported stolen out of Mobile PD, along with a bag of marijuana. That driver was charged with receiving stolen property 4th degree, possession of marijuana 2nd degree, no pistol permit, and had a current active warrant for breaking into vehicles. The other passenger was charged with receiving stolen property 4th degree, no pistol permit, and had a current active warrant for certain persons forbidden to possess firearms. Officer Mullenix makes it a great point to be very proactive in his beat. He has a passion for trying to remove drugs and guns from the street because he sees the aftermath of what the systemic violence that associates that activity. It's his desire to one day work in the narcotics division of Mobile PD. We're certainly glad to have him, and it certainly is a call for him. But Officer Mullenix, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if you would allow me, we keep saying this over and over again, and if y'all could really put it out in your own newsletters, the guns being taken out of unlocked cars. Nearly 1,200 guns a year just reported to Mobile PD, and that's just what's been reported. We have no idea whether that number is 2 or 3 times higher. We know that a number of these guns are not being reported to us. Only half of them have serial numbers that are being reported to us. And so we are, again, taking every opportunity to appeal to the public that we adamantly will defend people's legal right to possess a weapon. And we'll actually defend your right to defend yourself. But help us keep you safe, certainly help keep us safe, and make sure that these weapons are secured. And that is my message for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President, Chief.
Mr. Small?
I have a question. You said 1,200 guns that was reported stolen, and this was 2018?
Yes, sir, and that number is just below 1,200, both in 2017 and 2018.
So this is primarily like consecutive, like 16, 17, 18. I mean, is it going up? Was it the same thing in 16?
There was a slight increase from 17 to 18, but they hover just below that 1,200 mark. Okay. 80% of these guns are taken from unlocked cars.
This is my goal for next week. I've been talking to our attorney to get with my colleagues by, presenting a resolution where we can send it to the State House where we can just push, for these unlocked guns, unsafe guns in these unlocked cars. I carry my gun, but I make sure my gun is, always safe, and I believe that citizens should also be as respectful and to protect their gun and lock them up and make sure that it's secured from thieves and everything. But we do appreciate everything that you had done. And also to the officer, congratulations on being Officer of the Month. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Daves and then Mr. Richardson.
Excuse me. I noticed that these stops that you made were switch tags. How do you know when a vehicle's been being operated with a switch tag? Just curious.
Due to systems that we have in our computers, we're able to pull up information on license plates. And so based on the area that I work in, I know known narcotics locations, and it just comes due to being familiar with my beat. When I see a car that is out of place coming from somewhere that doesn't seem to be like the right time to be coming from, I go investigate that car, see if anything's up with it. I'll definitely look. I appreciate it. I guess it's the DMV that's responsible for this, but the 2019 stickers on the license plates, they have the month and the year on the same sticker along with the full tag number of the vehicle, and I can look at those when I get behind the car. I can see part of that tag number on that sticker, and I can tell if that sticker has been tampered with. Looks like it's been peeled off slightly or partially ripped. It's an indicator that sticker does not belong on that tag, and I can look at that sticker and tell that it's been a little bit altered, or I can see the first 2 letters are 2 Boy Sam instead of the license plate says 2 Boy Henry. I'm like, those don't match up. Something's going on with this license plate that is not supposed to be going on. So upon further investigation of pulling up that tag and seeing, oh, that's a Chrysler 200, but this tag goes to a Ford F-150.
Right.
It's not the same car. And those type of investigations can lead to determining that license plate is stolen or the vehicle is in question is stolen, something of that nature.
That's great. Thank you very much.
In other words, Counselor, put your stickers on the right tag.
Mr. Richardson?
Okay, Director Barber, do you have the annual crime report for 2018?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will be announcing public safety committee meeting, so we will all be abreast on what has happened in these various council districts.
We'll make that annual crime report available to all of you. You do see a double-digit drop in our Part 1 crimes, or our most serious crimes. Homicides were down. We are nowhere near where we need to be. And again, one of the big issues we're seeing is the ready access to firearms, these stolen firearms that are being trafficked within our community. We're working very diligently with the United States Attorney's Office to deal with those gun traffickers. And again, our appeal is just to the citizens. Again, we adamantly defend your right to possess a weapon legally. And we certainly defend your right to defend yourself. But these guns are not only being used against our citizens, they're being used against our officers as well. And so we're asking to help keep you safe, help keep us safe, and remind you that these guns taken out of your driveway in the middle of the night, you're arming a criminal that's right outside your front door.
Yes, once we want to know what happened, but we also want to know what we can do to prevent that from happening in the future. So we would like for you to bring all ideas that you have that we can take back inside the community to give to our citizens to help us keep our communities safe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we appreciate your help.
Can I ask a question?
Mrs.
That's
Rich?
okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your service and dedication to our city. We really appreciate it. I know you've been talking at district meetings that I've hosted about this issue of unlocked vehicles and then their weapon out in their car. Do you recommend they bring that into their home and store it safely? Because even locked cars get broken into.
You know, I was talking to Officer Mullinex about this issue before we came down, and he removes everything. Even though we have locks for our weapons in our vehicles, he makes sure they go into his gun safe. The absolute safest thing to do is to remove the weapon. If you're coming to the courthouse, by all means, at least lock the vehicle, because 80% of them, again, are being taken just by pulling open the door and reaching and taking the weapon.
Well, I was going to also ask whether MPD wants to come out with maybe some, like a flyer type thing that we could constantly run in our newsletters that we put out to the community about what are the steps, what do you recommend that people do in the, to take possession of their, gun at all times.
You'll see the MPD we're working on PSAs, Lock It Up campaign about the firearms. There's also been incredible interest because of the recent shooting of Officer Tudor from the news stations about creating these PSAs again to really drive that message over. They will come with flyers and as well as stickers to go on the cars about locking up these firearms. So they're not used against you or against us.
Right, absolutely. Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Daves?
Chief, I'm happy to hear from Councilman Small that this council may be able to, as you know, our powers are limited by the state, and I hope that we will take as much action swiftly as we take on this important issue, so that hopefully the legislature can act during this upcoming session. I would think. Excuse me. I would think that with what we've seen recently in the state of Alabama in terms of police officers being killed and injured, that now would be an opportune time for the legislature to take this matter up and grant, at least to the Class 2 municipality, an ability to introduce some punitive measures when these types of things happen. Are you aware of is there any movement in the other large cities of the state to gain some power to, to regulate people leaving guns in automobiles or trucks?
I'm not aware of any current legislation being proposed by any of the major cities of Alabama related to that. I do know that all of our cities and all of our communities are suffering this exact same issue, not just in Alabama, but throughout the country. And I talk about gun traffickers. If you think about the sergeant killed in Birmingham, him and his partner were responding to auto burglars who I assume at this point are going to be gun traffickers as well. And so what used to be a petty crime turned into a very dangerous situation, not just for police officers, but for our community as well as homeowners who may interrupt an auto burglary.
Is gun trafficking a federal crime?
It is. Well, I'll tell you right now, we're prosecuting about 7 individuals. You have to understand that the warrant that Officer Tudor was trying to enforce was a federal violation for that exact offense. And so we are taking all these federally. We take them very seriously, and we rigorously prosecute anybody we catch trafficking stolen firearms.
Well, as you say, I don't think anyone on this council wants to interfere with a person's ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights. At the same time, they need to exercise those rights responsibly. And I think to the extent that the City of Mobile can take action to ensure they exercise those responsibly, we want to do that.
Some of the best action I think that we can take immediately is these public service announcements and make sure that we as a community start to really drive this message home. I don't think anybody that legally owns a firearm wants to see that firearm used against a police officer or against their family. And keep in mind that unlocked car sitting out in your driveway at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're armed criminal that's feet away from your front door. And so keep that in mind.
Well, Director Barber, I certainly agree with you. And I'm just astonished at that number, 1,200. Am I correct?
That's just the city.
That's the city.
And that's just what's been reported to us. There's literally thousands in the metro area every year.
That is an inordinate amount. It just puts all of both the homeowner, gun owner, and our average citizen, not including our police officers, our first responders, in a very precarious situation. I agree with Councilman Small. I'm hopeful that we can pass something that really encourages our legislature to give us some teeth, because at this point, is there a penalty for having having your gun in an unlocked vehicle? Is there a penalty to the gun owner for them not appropriately disposing of or taking care of that gun after they leave the vehicle?
There is not a criminal penalty, and there's actually a lot of discussion about criminalizing a victim of a crime. Yeah. And so, that's not some, but there is some discussion among lawyers at this point, civil lawyers, about tort liability for leaving a weapon after knowing or should know that weapon could be used in a crime and somebody is harmed therefrom. And so that discussion is ongoing on whether there's a personal liability for carelessness or negligence.
Because at this point, when you got 1,200 and just the ones that are reported, and I join my colleagues in saying I don't think anybody wants to curtail anyone's Second Amendment rights, but with those rights come responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to just carelessly leave that gun in your vehicle, you know it's there, and it's something as dangerous as that weapon, you ought to go the extra step to make certain that once you're out of it, because that's why you have it in the vehicle, to protect yourself. So once you're out of the vehicle, the gun ought to go with you and put it in the appropriate chamber or cabinet so that we don't have 1,200 incidences of people robbing, and you just carelessly lift up the handle of the car and you got a gun, a loaded gun in your possession. So I'm hopeful whatever Wanda and Councilman Small, I'd love to work on that as well, because we need to do something. I don't know if it's a fine, if it's a fee, to make people more cognizant of the fact that they need to take that weapon out of the vehicle.
Well, let me also point out that two of the last 4 line-of-duty deaths of Mobile PD officers were guns taken out of cars that were used to kill the officers. And so again, incredible responsibility goes with that ownership. We're asking to plead that all of you participate in getting that message out. Let's reduce access to these weapons and possibly save lives. But although people buy these guns and carry these guns for their self-protection, it is more likely than not it will be used against other people, themselves, or the police if you leave them unsecured.
That's really...
I have a question, quick question.
Mrs. Gregory?
Since we're on this line of discussion, those weapons that were taken out of cars that were used to commit the murders you had mentioned, is there any way to tell whether those guns were actually purchased legally by those owners, and did they have permits, and what kind of permits did they have?
In both the cases I'm talking about, the original owner legally purchased and possessed the firearm.
And had a permit.
Right, and again, that permit doesn't apply when you're at your residence, but certainly, you know, they were legally purchased that ended up in the hands of criminals that then used them to commit crimes and murder within our community.
Are most of the ones that are taken out of vehicles legally purchased and owned by some with a permit?
Yes, yes. They wouldn't report them to us if they didn't.
I'm wondering too, as we go forward with this, if there's not a way to help better educate these folks when they purchase these weapons and also get the permits to help them better understand what their responsibilities are at point of purchase.
You know, there's a lot of discussion, and I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but certainly talk to the sheriff because they're suffering the same thing throughout the region about attaching to that pistol permit that if this type of situation, carelessness or negligence occurs, that those permits be revoked. And I don't know where the sheriff is on that, but we're certainly looking into that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When a person gets a license to possess a legal gun, which no one is denying, does that mean the person is the one who has that permission, correct? It's the person, the actual individual is given the permission to utilize the gun to protect themselves, correct? It's not, so if they leave it in a car, it's not as though the car got the licensure. So would it be a responsibility to say it's the person at all times who needs to know and is obligated to know where that weapon is?
Absolutely.
And to oversee its proper use?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That gun owner, again, comes incredible responsibility to make sure that weapon doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah, and what I hear from individuals, and not defending this position necessarily, but they say, I wasn't the criminal that stole it. You know, like the person who stole it was the one who put it into motion to be used illegally. But if you leave it in an unlocked car, you're almost encouraging that behavior pattern. You are participating in that in a manner.
In a way, because negligence, we are putting thousands of firearms into the hands of criminals every year.
Right.
And so,
but you're not the person who precipitated that crime. You know, you're not forgiving the person who did take the gun illegally out of the possession, but the person was not nearby to possess it responsible.
right.
Because they weren't there to watch it.
Correct, and it's, again, an unlocked vehicle, easy access, and the criminals know this. The gun traffickers know it.
It's really almost a legal liability issue.
Again,
like
they're looking at the tort liability of that type of negligence.
And I'm hopeful that that's a lane that we can go down because you surely would not leave your, at least not intentionally, you wouldn't leave your wallet. You wouldn't leave your purse.
Well,
So surely, well, they do, but those cases happen so few and far between. Whereas as dangerous as a weapon, there's no other thought about it. When you've got 1,200 instances of that happening that have been reported, there's no telling how many haven't been reported. We've got to do better. We've got to do better, and it's affecting not only citizens in our community, but it's taking out too many of our first responders.
Mr. Vice President, I think our attorney had wanted to state something.
Yes, sir.
We can discuss it later, but in looking at the issue, I found that some states have mandatory reporting laws when a weapon is stolen so that you actually not everybody reports, but it's my understanding there's no requirement that people report stolen weapons now. Is that correct?
There's no penalty for not reporting it.
Is there an affirmative requirement?
I think there's an obligation of a gun owner to let us know that that weapon is missing. Only about half of the weapons that were reported even had the serial numbers recorded. So even though we are recovering these weapons, we have no way of knowing that we're actually have a stolen weapon because it wasn't reported or the serial number not recorded. So.
Right. So besides mandatory reporting laws, I also learned that there was a community in Connecticut that was using the reckless endangerment laws to prosecute certain individuals who left guns in the car. And I know Alabama's reckless endangerment statute is pretty broad. Have you ever thought about utilizing reckless endangerment laws in this situation?
You know, in ours, you have to create a situation that, I guess the short answer is no. Again, the issue now being, are we criminalizing the victim of a crime? Yeah. And so is it more of a tort liability than a criminal liability? Because there certainly was no intent of the gun owner for his weapon to be used, but it's more of a negligence issue of not properly securing the weapon. And so I think that's where you see a lot of us heading.
And I guess the third thing that I learned was there are some cities that have authority, unlike us, who have certain penalties for not locking your vehicle. They'll combine the reporting laws with the unlocked laws. In other words, you've got 24 hours to report it. And then they also, another approach is requiring, it's almost like a technology approach, requiring that ones all have trigger locks on them.
You're making a statement or asking a question?
Well, both. I don't know that much about it, but I had found some references. So I was just curious about what your experience was with trigger locks, and does that help? You
know, trigger locks on stored weapons make a lot of sense, or locking them into a gun safe. What people that carry weapons for self-protection are against trigger locks because they're not able to access that weapon quicker to defend themselves. And so a stored weapon, yes, but on these. And again, I think it has to do with us really driving that point home that these weapons are being used in crimes. They're being used to kill police officers, whether it's Birmingham or and so we've got to do a better job of gun owners being responsible for those weapons. And certainly we don't want, and if you ever think, as a gun owner, if you ever think about the fact that a guy just a few feet out that front door is accessing a loaded weapon right outside your door, that all he had to do was open, and it's a gun you bought him.
Right. Yeah.
And so that is the message that we have to get to gunners. And again, criminal penalty for the negligence acts, I don't think that we can accomplish that in the state, but certainly looking at the civil aspect of liability if somebody is harmed through a negligent act might be a better approach.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Yes, we can go on and on with this. Let the record show state law forbids the city of Mobile from enacting any law pertaining to a gun. We can say how horrific it is. We can go on and on, but the state law said leave guns alone. That unless we pass the law, there is no law. How horrible it is, who are they shot? Leave the gun law alone. So if there is any hope that the recommendation that Councilman Small sent to the legislature is going to come to fruition, then the mayor, the city council, and our public safety division going to together go to Montgomery. Talk is cheap. We got to go to Montgomery. I haven't seen that in the past. With all this business, you can carry a gun to church, you can carry wherever you want to. I haven't seen the Public Safety Department of the state of Alabama, the county nowhere is going up saying, no, don't let them carry the guns to the church. Let them keep the guns. Can't have both of them. We can't keep the gun and then make them get rid of the gun. Can't have both. So in order to enact this law here, we got to go to Montgomery in unison with uniform zone saying we want this law passed. If not, it's not going nowhere.
Any further commentary? If not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you for all you do.
Congratulations.
Appeals. On today's agenda is a request for a waiver of the noise ordinance at
I've got one other
I'm sorry, adoption of the agenda.
No problem.
No, the mayor still.
I'm sorry. I'm a
In the audience, we have Chandra Brown Stewart. Chandra, could you bring your group down to the podium? Yeah. And introduce them before I read, just two of you. Introduce yourselves before I actually read the proclamation, please.
Hey, good morning. I'm Chandra Brown Stewart. I'm with Lifelines Counseling Services. I'm the agency. This is Mary Howard, and she is our 211 call center director. Up there we have Jan Pressler. She's our deputy director. Stephanie Ward, our call specialist, and Lori Rowland is just here hanging out with us today, but she's our Rape Crisis Center coordinator.
Okay, what's the name of your group again?
Can we get your address, please?
Oh, my address. Okay, 705 Oak Circle Drive East. The name of our group is Lifelines Counseling Services.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chandra. The proclamation reads, whereas United Way 211 provides information and referrals to citizens in our community, help meet the health and human services needs of Mobilians of all ages, and whereas United Way 211 is available to all Mobilians regardless of the socioeconomic or educational level, and last year alone answered nearly 9,200 calls and provided information to hundreds and hundreds of callers, and whereas United Way 211 provides screening for families of children from birth through 8 years of age to refer to Help Me Grow Alabama, an early childhood development program through partnership with the Alabama Partnership for Children, and whereas the United Way in all its services has provided a capable and compassionate helper and partner for the city of Mobile for many years, especially through its 211 service to our region. Now therefore, I, William S. Stimson, the 108th Mayor of the City of Mobile, do hereby recognize February 2019 as United Way 211 Month. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Mary Ann, before you do that, Mayor, let me extend his time for a second. We had some individuals from the University of Alabama in town last Friday. Mr. Daves and the mayor and I went to the reception at Gulfport. And what I gave to you was the commemorative coin marking a day when University of Alabama began its move from Tuscaloosa to Mobile. That's what I told all of them, and I look forward to that day. What they were here for, and what Friday marked, was the beginning of their physical presence in Mobile, part of what is called the Alabama Transportation Institute, as well as some other efforts, but mostly looking at expanding their research here in town and looking at transportation and our infrastructure. They have just about everything. They're going to be able to work with us. It's a great time in Mobile to be looking at those things as we grow. And they brought the heavy hitters. They're not just leasing a room from Gulf Quest. They're bringing University of Alabama to Mobile. And so we should be seeing them. There'll be plenty of opportunities to collaborate with them. But what I must say is they have the best office space in Mobile, Alabama. Please take an opportunity, go by Gulf Quest and take a look at what's there and what they did. But as an additional comment, we took about 20 people out onto the roof, and this goes beyond what they were here for. And with some members of Gulf Quest and others looked at the possibility of what could be on the third and fourth floors outside of Gulf Quest. we need a major, I'm talking about New York style, better than anything in New Orleans or Chicago or Seattle, restaurant in Mobile, Alabama, and we have the place. This is one of those opportunities we just simply miss. So not only was it a great day to have University of Alabama here in town, but to open up the possibility and start talking seriously about putting a restaurant at Gulf Quest and doing all that's necessary to make it open to the public everywhere. It's a great night. Again, I snatched cones for everybody so that you can remember this conversation. Thank you.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Probably motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted.
Appeals on today's agenda is a request for a waiver of noise ordinance at 911 Dolphin Street on March the 3rd and 250 Marine Street on March 16.
So moved.
Second.
Probably moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are granted.
Public hearings today is a public hearing rezone property at 1564 and 1568 Hertel Street and 1577 Forest Street from R1 and B2 to R1.
Is there anyone here that would like to offer any commentary relative to this particular public hearing? Yes, sir. If you could come state your name and your address.
Good morning to the City Council and to the Mayor. Ralph Carmichael Sr., and the address is 47-1 Layton Place Court.
That's Mobile.
Mobile, yes. Alabama 36693.
All right.
And the project in question here, we've been in the area at this location since 1990, and we've acquired the properties at the 1564 Hertel Street location, and also the property at the 1577 Forest Street location, which is right behind. And we're just combining everything and expanding the child care facilities there. And at the 1577 location, there's actually going to be a nursery only at that location. And so we're just changing the zoning from, I think it was B2 to having everything R1. And that's it. We'd like to move forward, please. And I'd love to have your support in rezoning this area.
Any questions for Mr. Carmichael? Any additional thoughts you'd like to share with us?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
Anyone else that would like to speak relative to this particular public hearing? Not, public hearing is closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Ann Pond.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ann Pond. I live at 300 South Georgia Avenue, 36604. And I just wanted to have a few remarks to you this morning regarding cultural development in general and cutbacks in the budget, which I know is something that you've heard before. But I would love to say that I was thrilled to hear you talk about Gulf Quest in that way, because that's one of the, the things that I think is needed is to grab onto some of these opportunities that we've been missing. And so, having this third floor, for instance, at Gulf Quest is such a wonderful experience to be there, and you think, why aren't we utilizing this better? And so it's not even just about the educational value that is enormous at Gulf Quest, but the facilities themselves. So I just wanted to have a few comments about the budget in general and the idea of encouraging, in future budgets, some reflections on that based on my experiences that I wanted to share, and then propose possible cost-free solution that would help better increase communication across the board. But if we do look at the new budget, I know, of course, 4 or 5 years ago, there were necessary cutbacks for everyone, and that happened. Of course, it impacted our museums and many of our nonprofit organizations, history and art included. But even in the last budget, continued cutbacks continue to appear. And so as we look at that, I just think that we should be looking more, or perhaps just be looking at the long-term impacts of these students. So I just wanted you to think of this. What we're really creating is this cycle. And so I've seen it, I've watched it over the past few years, kind of get in motion, and it struck me a few years ago when I saw the History Museum, for instance. I teach history, so that's kind of, I'm very concerned about the arts and history. But so I saw the History Museum, for instance, lose a great deal of support, and I was kind of taken back, and I asked questions about it, and then I saw another organization, and the Preservation Society, and another, and another. And so, what happens in this case is that when these cultural organizations that are losing funding, they can't, our natural thing is we think, oh, well, maybe they won't be open as many hours or as many days, and it doesn't really do that much damage in the long term. But they don't create as many public programs. That's, a museum's function is not just to preserve artifacts, but to educate the public, and that means much more than we've seen in Mobile. It doesn't just mean exhibits, it should mean real outreach, it should mean a real presence in the community. It should be the museum's function to provide professional research and that information out there and make, if it's a history museum, make history a prevalent part of daily life and a prevalent part of the experience of a tourist when they come to the city. We promote ourselves as a historic city, but if a tourist comes to the city, where do they go to get information? They're getting a lot of factually incorrect information right now, I can tell you, and they have very few and fewer places to go to experience, something really presented professionally. If you look at other cities, I have with me a study by the Arts for America organization that looked at many cities across the country and the economic impact of the arts within those cities. But they looked at their budgets, and if you look at the cities close to our size, there's almost none that contribute less than $10 million to the arts and history kind of combined. If you look at, maybe even larger cities, it's usually around 50 million. It's usually, there are so many that are well over 100. Mobile contributes less than 5 million of its budget, and not one city on there that is close to as little as we contribute. So it's a real issue that I think we should, if we're going to promote ourselves as a historic city, if we are going to look at the arts and realize their value that will go back into the economy, then we need to raise this up from the very bottom of the totem pole all the time. And so, the idea is to create perhaps some type of an organization, and this has been proposed in the past, to create some type of a commission that would bring together leaders of the different museums, the different organizations, and just increase that dialogue, because that goes a long way. For instance, when I was at a tourism meeting recently, about a year ago, there were a couple of different institutions that were having exhibits. Oh, I'm sorry.
Dr. Bond, I'm sorry, your time has expired, but I know we are certainly interested in your subject matter. If you could come back, or I would certainly be in favor of maybe setting up some meetings where we can really have a continued dialogue, because you, over the last 4 or 5 years, have had some discussions about many of the items that you referenced, particularly Mardi Gras. I believe my colleagues would be interested as well, but your time has expired.
That's fine. The idea was simply to move ahead with the hope of meeting again. So
sounds like a winner. I know I have 2 colleagues that are interested in speaking, Councilman Richardson and then Councilman Daves.
Yes, Dr. Pons, I have some good news for you, I believe. When we received the 2018-2019 proposed budget from the administration, it had in it the kind of cuts you were talking about. The council restored the funding to level funding. We didn't cut any of them. It was proposed. But in actuality, the council restored the funding to level funding. In other words, they got the same amount of funding this year that they received last year. Did you know?
It's still low.
Yeah,
but that is good.
You're saying what you told us and what the public heard out there is that we had cut funding.
Right.
No, ma'am.
And that's just what appears on the budget that's posted online right now, that it went for many organizations for instance, from 10,000 to 9,000 for many, but I understand that that is
Yes.
corrected.
I don't even know whether the 2019 budget is even posted yet, but if it is, it is. But if you compare the 2019 budget that's posted now to the 2018 budget, you'll see it's level funded.
Thank you.
Want you to know. Okay.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Pond, for coming today. I'd just like to make one correction to Mr. Richardson's comments, and that is that the council did cut $500,000 to Gulf Quest, and so I just wanted to make that clarification. The second thing is that, well, actually I have two other things. We get, almost every time we meet, we have folks come down here and talk to us about devoting more money to this, that, or the other thing. I've been here for, I guess, 5.5 years. I don't recall any one of those people ever suggesting where the money would come from to provide the additional funding. So that thing to keep in mind. The third thing is with respect to this idea you have, you know, the city doesn't have to do that. These organizations can initiate such an organization themselves. And I have made that suggestion on several occasions in the past. And I really think it would be a better outcome for the organizations to create such an organization than to have the council create such an organization.
Can I respond? I would
Yes, ma'am.
simply just say that I believe that is very true, and that would probably be what would need to happen. The idea would be that group would create a plan, a very specific plan, a strategic plan for development to work together, and that we would need or the organization would need the council's support in making sure those things happen. So.
I think the council would be happy to hear any suggestions an organization might have.
Mrs. Rich?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Daves wholeheartedly that groups coming together because there's strength in numbers. It's sort of like when you have one homeowners association in an area, but when they partner with others, their message gets stronger. And there is nothing presented that says this can't happen out of its own volition, just like the executive directors perhaps that represent, or the presidents of the board of directors of the museums that we have within our city, meeting, talking, developing strategic long-range planning so that when one group is asking for funding for an initiative, it could be in a year's time that takes place. Through fundraising in the private sector, through raising funds in the government level, and taking turns in order to do that very strategically. So I think your message is very well conceived, but it doesn't necessarily take a governmental body to create that energy. Because if you identify the people in the leadership roles of the different entities, coming together would only further their goals in the long run.
This is true, and I would just like to conclude by saying one of the problems is that in the lack of funding, we don't have that kind of initiative always, and so it's very often the truth that it needs the public, it needs the governmental support to really have that backbone and to make sure it keeps going, because we don't have that kind of leadership here very often.
Well,
So
when the city is paying for utilities or paying for the big ticket items of the facility, like roofing, structural issues, then you have to have that partnership together.
Right.
And so again, it's bringing voices together as one, as opposed to separate groups coming out. And as Councilman said, asking for these resources, but it's like when the left knows what the right's doing, it's a much stronger message.
And I would advocate any solution that doesn't involve any resources, just an organization. So thank you.
Right.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for coming down.
I have a final statement.
Yes, sir.
Our statement is this, that what I said to you was those organizations that's in the budget that the administration proposed to cut their funding, the council restored it. I stick with that. GovQuest was not one of those. I stick with what I said.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for your continued advocacy in this regard. We appreciate it.
Reggie Hill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, administration, citizens, and stakeholders of Mobile, good morning.
Good morning.
Reggie Hill, 1007 Center Street. I rise today to speak about public safety. It was great to hear that our Director of Public Safety say that some of these acts are decreasing in our city, particularly dealing with homicides. But I, as any other citizen who is involved in the community, probably would want to check on the validity of that, as well as we hear about the 1,200 incidents where we have guns being taken out of cars and we're not having a fulfilled number of that being an accurate statement. I want to look back to something that I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I spoke about public safety, the idea about the first murder, which involved a rock and not a gun. So again, I don't think the issue here is a gun problem in the city of Mobile, the state of Alabama, or across this country. I believe it is a mindset and a heart problem. I too support the Second Amendment, but I think what has happened over time is systematic indoctrination in our school systems. We've taken away the idea of what the Second Amendment represents. The Second Amendment wasn't designed for us to defend ourselves from each other. The Second Amendment was designed to defend the Constitution. When people in a position of power are taken away from the idea of democracy, taken away from the idea of it being a free society, that's why the Second Amendment was put in place, not to protect ourselves from each other. And I would suggest that people who don't know much about that to go and do some research and understand the background of why that was put in place. I want us to look at how we got here, this idea of the gun violence, how we got here with this idea of murders, how we got here with this idea of us having a violent, and a lot of the acts that we're seeing, particularly in this area, in the state of Alabama, if we just look at the incarceration numbers, it's from people of color. If we just want to be honest and direct, blunt, candid, whatever you want to say about it, it's primarily from people of color. Well, if you look at the systematic approaches that have led us to this place, we can truly, totally understand why something like this could even occur. And this is what I mean. If we look all the way back to slavery, which took an estimated of $5.9 trillion of earned wages from people who were working for nothing. We look at the 1935 Social Security, which took about $143 billion in benefits from people of color. If you look at the vagrancy law, which came out right after slavery when the policing system was even being put into place, where we're penalizing individuals who do not have a full-time job or a place of residence. Well, this put a number of 4 million enslaved people in that same category. We look at new voting laws that came about through police that came afterwards. Yes, you can vote if you can read this document. Well, we look at the idea, if you were able to read that document, you were then arrested because it was illegal for you to read. So if we look at all of these systematic things that have led to where we are today. There's been a punitive attack in certain areas, and the response is only to be that way. We can't expect a cordial response from people who have been forced to live a brutal lifestyle the majority of their lives. We cannot expect them to act in a decorum fitting for chambers such as this when their whole life has been nothing that reflect what we do in here. It's not possible. So when we look at the idea of even the 13th Amendment, saying an abolition of something, but there's a clause in there that talks about except. So when we have the idea of the criminal activities coming, these people are being labeled as criminals, sometimes even through perception. Saw an idea of what potentially perception could be, even in our warding this morning. Perception, and how these things lead to these things. Perception. We oftentimes ignore the good of those who are being perceived as being some way, while, we highlight those things while ignoring the immediate and instant exact thing not in the best interest of our people because of folks who are in positions. So all I'm saying is this. 2 weeks ago, I sent some communications to the chairwoman of the Committee for Public Safety. The reason why that's because I've reached out countlessly to talk to this administration, and it has not worked. So the only place left is to come to the council. We've been arguing the past 2 or 3 months regarding who has the authority to put things in place to actually make stuff happen. That's the reason why I approached the council. We've been doing all these things, and we now have the authority to do it. Why not at least hear it out? Just like this. This was a plan from Dr. Pohl speaking of something that is cost efficient that you don't even have to worry about paying for. We're not even listening to the idea plans that could be put in place. We're not even having the meetings to just hear the citizens that we all in here represent. So I couldn't get all of my notes in that time, nor can I make a serious presentation in the time. So I'm, again, making a formal verbal request for that committee meeting, and I hope that we can move forward. Now I'm going to send some additional information this week to the administration again and this council, and my apologies, Chairman, for going over the limit, but I think it's a very urgent matter that the city needs to address, and I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Vice President, I would make a statement, and I can make a statement for many people, many council people on this podium, but at least from my office, that's the reason why many of us have district meetings and hear exactly from the citizens, especially the ones that do not really just email or just call us. I have one a district meeting scheduled in March. I'm giving everybody a month and a half notice. We can't help, what other departments do, but we can't control our own office. And, therefore, that's a time for us to hear exactly what the citizens, want and what we like, and we just bring it back to the administration. We can't help that the mayor don't have mayor meetings, if he every day or every month or every quarter what people would like. But again, that's the responsibility of why the council members, we have our own district meetings where we can hear the citizens and hear exactly, what they want. So, about the statement about, hearing what citizens want, they have an opportunity to come to meetings, to our district meeting, and also to city council to hear exactly what they want, as long as dealing with the city of Mobile. Thank you, Vice President Manzi.
Mr. Williams?
If you wouldn't mind, while we're clarifying comments and making just short comments, in 2008, the Supreme Court recognized that the Second Amendment was, in fact, maybe not entirely, but impartial, a right to self-defense. So you may want to check your notes. I know you did your homework, but there's always more to the story.
Any further commentary? And I just, I often dialogue with Mr. Hill, probably every week in some form or fashion. He's here on a pretty consistent basis, and I can admire his passion, his persistence. But any item dealing with resources, any item dealing with city resources is an item that has to be initiated from the administration's perspective, and then brought before the council. And we've communicated that to Mr. Hill. I'm hopeful that in the near future, the administration and Mr. appropriate contacts with the administration and Mr. Hill can have an opportunity to really have a serious dialogue about some of the ideas that he has, and we can be able to move forward. But thank you for coming down, Mr.
Marty O'Malley.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and I'll be short and sweet. And good news. So this is about the Mobile Marathon. So this was our 18th year. We had a name change this year, so it went from First Life Mobile. So the official name is Service First Bank Mobile Marathon, presented by Infirmary Health. Good news was we had around 400 room nights for that weekend, which was the weekend of January 12th and 13th. We included our Unity Walk again. This was the second year. We had 26 groups, churches, or businesses walk 1 mile of the marathon in Unity, and it was the kickoff for the official Martin Luther King Jr. Week, which started on January 13th, and it ended on Martin Luther King Day. So we were very excited about that. We do want to commend Councilman Williams, who was one of our official balloon people. So we have a special thank you for him and his son, who walked 6.2 miles in a 16-minute mile pace. And
wait a minute now, he walked 1.2 miles in 16 minutes.
No, 6.2 in 16 minutes.
Okay.
So this is a special canvas for him and his son. The canvas, just so L'Arche Mobile coordinates the marathon, and we produced approximately 1,000 of these hand-painted canvases. And on the back is a bio of one of our residents who actually participated in making this. So we would like to thank them.
Wonderful.
Go, John, go.
And believe it or not, we were actually on time this year, thanks to Councilman Williams. We did have one individual who took 12 hours and 37 minutes. It was his 45th marathon. And he ran into a slight little problem where he ended up at the Pullman's on Old Shell Road, and a little disoriented, a little lost. Unfortunately, a citizen bought him a chicken salad sandwich. And that brought him to one of our mile markers, which is when we picked him up. He was adamant that he was going to finish. This was his 45th marathon in 45 states. So people use our race as they try to do 50 states, a marathon in each state. And so they like Mobile. And so he was adamant that he wanted to make sure that Mobile was on his list. We also have a little thank you for the mayor, who I notice is not here, but maybe Chief Barber can receive this. It's a thank you for the city. We had so many compliments on the police and our volunteers. We have 8 volunteers and about 150 police officers, making sure that everything is safe and the runners are comfortable. And every year we always have a lot of people responding to the City of Mobile and the citizens. So we want to thank the mayor and his staff. And on the back, Willie, for those that might remember, Willie has always been our official starter. Willie suffered a stroke about 1.5 years ago, and unfortunately is not able to get to the start line, but his picture's on the back of the mayor's plaque. So thank you. So next year, it's January 12th, and it'll be our 19th year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CIP resolutions held over. 01144, authorized agreement with GRW Engineers for stormwater GIS GPS mapping. And 21145, authorized contract with C. Thornton for 2017 CIP McGregor Avenue sidewalks phase 2.
So moved.
Second.
Probably motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed.
Resolutions held over. If there are no objections, I'll take them all together. Okay. 01146 is authorized agreement with Alabama Department of Transportation for a bridge replacement over Pinto Pass on Dunlap Drive. 13147 is approved change order number 2 to the contract with Clark Gear Latham and Associates for the master services agreement for right-of-way permit application reviews. 21148 as contract with S&O Enterprises for fire alarm upgrades of the city golf course. 21149 is authorized contract with Cone Incorporated for emergency elevator repairs, drive replacement, Mobile, Alabama Cruise Terminal. 21150 authorized contract with J. Payne Organization for Public Works Administration building interior renovations. 21151 is authorized contract with J. Payne Organization for the History Museum of Mobile Arch Vehicle Entrance Wall Repair. 21152 authorized contract with Gulf Coast Fence Company for Herndon Sage Park Field C chain link fence repair. 21153 authorized a contract with DOT Emergency Services to provide post-disaster debris removal services. 25154 grant easement to Alabama Power Company for service for the police camper horse trailer hookups in the arena area. 6155 determine expenditure of discretionary funds for contribution to the Alabama Kidney Foundation serves a public purpose and for approved payment. And 31156 adopt the 2019 program year action plan.
So moved.
Second. Probably motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed.
Orders being introduced for the first time, 64006 and 88007.
By council rules said resolutions will live for 1 week.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 03158 through 6168.
Motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of resolutions 03158 through 6168 with the
Excuse me.
along with the exception of 03158.
Thank you.
And also 37165. I'm asking you.
Where are we?
Okay, 37165.
Okay.
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 Then, with those exceptions, probably motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's good.
08159 and 08160 approve item-based bids and approve purchase orders.
So moved.
Second.
Probably motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
31161, 162, and 163 are grant applications to the Department of Justice for the Saki program grant, for the Sexual Assault and Stalking Grant Program, and for the Domestic and Sexual Assault grants.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed.
37164 and 37166 recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a special events license for Callahan's St. Patrick's Day and for a special retail more than 30 days for a Prestige Event Center.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly motion and second on 37165. I'm asking that we lay that over 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Will you make a
The other two, with the other item, I have no issue with.
And that'll need to be voted on.
Will you make a motion?
I will.
Okay.
I'd ask that we move forward with item number 37164.
Second.
Motion. Been properly motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. And I also ask that we lay over item 37165 for a period of 2 weeks.
Second.
Properly motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item is held for 2 weeks.
58167, authorize removal of weeds, Group 1588, and 6168, approve award of special bonus to Officer of the Month, Griffin Molyneux.
So moved.
Second.
All properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries.
Resolutions being introduced for the first time, 01176 through 25174.
By council rules said resolutions will lay over for 1 week.
Announcements.
Mr. Williams.
No, sir, thank you.
Yeah, just for clarification, we did vote on 166, correct? And that was the Prestige. We did vote, okay, just making sure. Yeah, greetings to the citizens of District 3. I had the privilege and opportunity to be attend the St. Mark Christian Church, which is in Councilman Richardson District on this past Sunday. They honored me for being part of Black History Month. And it was a great opportunity for being honored on this past Sunday. On this coming Sunday, I will be speaking at Bayside Church, Baptist Church on Wanaka Avenue in the Maysville community, inviting all the citizens that's around the Maysville area to come out this coming Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m., where I'll be there speaking on this coming Sunday. And just remind all the citizens of District 3 that we will be having our district meeting on Tuesday, March the 6th, at the Gilliard Elementary School at 6 o'clock p.m. We are inviting Mr. Chris Curry, executive of the CEO of the Airport Authority. He will come out and answer the questions that you might have about the future of the airport at Brooklyn-Plex. Again, this will be on March the 26th, which is a Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Gilliard Elementary School. And if there's any citizen that's in District 3 would like anything else addressed dealing with the city issue, especially within the District 3, please contact my office at 208-7441 or either email me at cj.small@cityofmobile.org. Thank you, Vice President Mann.
Absolutely no problem. Small, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to announce that I will be holding my Crichton Community meeting at the Dumas Wesley Center this coming Thursday, February 21st at 6 p.m. Asking all citizens in the area to please come out and join us. The overall theme for the meeting is going to be jobs and job training. We'll have people there from various companies and from Bishop State talk about available jobs and the training that's available so people can access some of these good paying jobs. We're going to have a public safety update. Certainly, I will be listening to citizens' concern. I think that's something that we just heard Councilman Small mention, that if you got something you want to say, you can always come to the district meetings. I'm holding one this Thursday, and any issue the citizens hold in District 1, they need to come to the meeting. This meeting, I have 5 major communities in District 1. This meeting is for the citizens in Crichton, but I don't care where you come from in District 1. You are welcome. We're going to have updates and announcements. It's a lot of information going to be passed out. And I'm asking our citizens to please come and join us. I'm happy to announce that we just finished our street resurfacing program. We were able to resurface Wright Street, Bundy's, Brownlee Street, Coolman Street, Como Street, Blackman Street, Pennington Street, Rebecca Drive, Rebecca Court, and Bundy's Court. Though we have finished those streets, and they are looking good. And we also finished Sage Avenue from Imogene Street northward to Spring Hill Avenue until the end, all the way, has been resurfaced. And that was a major project, but we were able to get that done. Sunday, I was invited Sunday morning to be the Black History speaker at God's Kingdom Church Ministry. This church is located on St. Stephen Road, and I want to, this is Black History Month. I intend to have something to say. We have one more Tuesday left, and I would just like to say that my ancestors started off as property. They had the same rankings as an animal, started off as property. But let me share with you that it was an African American that invented the cell phone. Even children, most of our children children have cell phones. The air conditioner, the electric lamp, the elevator, the traffic light, the clothes dryer, the refrigerator, the helicopter, the automatic transmission, the lawn sprinkler, the lawn mower, the moon buggy, help vet, the atom bomb, the car wash, ironing board, meat smoker, hearing aid, blood plasma, vegetable oil, breakfast cereal, instant coffee, and George Washington Carver by itself invented and discovered more than thousands of other people put together. He took the peanut and he created 300 products. He took the sweet potato, he invented 118 projects, and he took the pecan and he invented 75 products. I don't have time to go any further, but we may have started at the bottom. We didn't stay at the bottom. And I would say this: go and line up every ethnic group in America and what they've contributed to America. And I would guarantee nobody would outpace these African Americans in spite of what they've gone through. I'm through.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We appreciate your commentary. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The citizens of District 5 also have plenty of opportunities to contact their elected representative on the Mobile City Council. The next district meeting is April 2nd, which is a Tuesday at 6:00 p.m. at Westminster Presbyterian Church. I hope that Mayor Stimson will be able to attend. I have a commitment from Chief Batiste to attend and from the interim Public Services Director, Mr. Peavy, to attend. Also, citizens can always contact my office, 208-7523, or joel.daves@cityofmobile.org. I would like to also join Mr. Williams in commenting on the event which occurred at the Gulf Quest Museum last Friday evening, and the location of the Transportation Services Office of the University of Alabama in Mobile. I think it's easy to overlook the importance of that move by the University of Alabama, but it is a very important move and has long-term implications for the city of Mobile, all of which are good. It's a fabulous facility, and we welcome the University of Alabama to its location here in the city of Mobile. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mrs. Rich?
Thank you very much. I'd just like to announce again a meeting tonight at the Connie Hudson Senior Center for District 6 residents to learn about the map of Mobile, how they can interact with the website to give their feedback, and to learn some more details about the proposed changes to our zoning classifications. Present will be Executive Director of Build Mobile, Shayla Biko, and also with us, to my knowledge, will be Margaret Pappas, who is the Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning, and I believe that's under Build Mobile as well, the department. Again, I welcome everybody to come out to, will be specific to this topic at this particular meeting, and I thank the administration for allowing those individuals with the city's planning staff to be present, to work with the district, and to educate residents about the proposed changes. Again, that's at 6:30 this evening at the Connie Hudson Senior Center, and the program will go until about 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Yes,
good news for the district. Resurfacing has started, finally. Spire has been doing a project throughout the district, and they are just about finished up, and where they have finished, we've started milling the streets, and in at least a couple of places, they've already laid the asphalt, so resurfacing is finally coming to the district, and I know everyone will be looking forward to getting those streets done, and of course, now we're already planning ahead for the next resurfacing program, so my resurfacing projects will be fairly close together, which, you know, sometimes is a good thing, sometimes not. I have a district meeting that we had scheduled for April 2nd, which I think we may need to look at changing, Mrs. Fairley. Since Mr. Daves has one scheduled for the 2nd also, we may open some of the speakers. So we'll look at maybe changing that to the following week. But at that meeting, I intend to have someone there to talk about the Greenway Initiative. Of course, Ziegler widening is always a big topic. And I'd also like to introduce our new Parks and Recreation Director, Shonda Smith, who I will be touring the parks in my district with coming up in the next couple of weeks, setting a date for that. So those will all be great topics of a lot of interest for the people in the district. And the last thing I did want to just talk about a little is the 3 Mile Creek initiative that is underway in my district as well as in Mr. Richardson's district. I have a meeting set with residents who back up to the creek in the Springwood neighborhood coming up next Tuesday afternoon at about 4:30 to continue talking about some of their concerns. I'm in close contact with Shayla Biko and her staff with what is going on, so I'll be able to better explain exactly what the status is now. But I will be meeting with those residents next week. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I want to announce that on Tuesday, March the 19th, we will be holding our 58th community meeting. That will be at the Union Baptist Church, 508 Africatown Boulevard at 6 p.m. This meeting is being called specifically to get some concerted and concentrated feedback from the Africatown and Plateau Magazine Point Lewis Quarters community as it relates to the Mobile River Bridge and the Bayway. Mr. Calamity and his staff have asked that we would convene at this particular venue the residents so that they can hear from them directly about any of their concerns as this Mobile River Bridge project really starts to gather steam. We'll have that meeting in March, and then we'll be working with his office to have another meeting specifically for the Oakley and the down the Bay areas. So we want to make certain that both communities, or all the communities that will be intimately impacted, either through the construction or either through the rerouting of traffic as it relates to tolls and things of that nature. I'm appreciative of the Alabama Department of Transportation and Mr. Calamity being intentional in hearing from those residents and those community leaders so that we can make this generational kind of a project something that everybody can be incredibly proud of. On last Monday, I had the opportunity to go over with Mr. Robert Battles, the school board commissioner for District 4. They're building a brand new wing and gymnasium at the Williamson early grades, middle school, high school effort there. Mr. Battles has been working hard over the last 4 years to see this project come to fruition. It will be named after one of Mobile's greatest inventors, Dr. Lonnie G. Johnson, who's also an alumnus of Williamson High School, and he invented the world-renowned Super Soaker. And his family is still here. He's engaged with the robotics program there at Williamson High School. And I was happy to contribute the sum of $10,000 to their effort to get that robotics program off the ground and really got an instructor that's working with it specifically. And to just see the excitement of those young men and women with the new initiative that's going on there at Williamson High School. I'm proud to have been associated with that and look forward to continue association with it. Keep up the good work in that regard. Mr. Commissioner, we're proud of Mr. Kervin Lang, who's the principal there at Williamson High School. Just have gotten so many calls from alumni who have just excited at the new direction that Williamson is going in. So Let's keep that up. This morning, I was not in pre-council. I was invited to be the Black History speaker at the Clark Shaw Magnet School. They had an outstanding program with moving images from the floor, just really a stellar effort. And I want to commend the principal, Ms. Vincenzo, and the Black History sponsor from the staff's perspective, Ms. Doris Yates. It was an outstanding program. Let's keep up the good work in that regard. Now I'm appreciative of our colleague, Councilman Richardson, who reminds us each week and reminded us of some of the stellar accomplishments of African Americans, not only here in the city of Mobile, but across this country and really across the world. I'm proud as we relate and speak to resurfacing. To my knowledge, there was only one street in the district that had not ever been paved. One. Small street with a collective of Muslims that live there on the street as a community. And it's Aurelia, right off of Texas Street. And they've been talking with me for about 3 to 4 years saying, we want the street paved, we want the street paved. Well, I'm proud that we finally was able to accomplish that goal. Now, we have plenty of streets in the district that are just in horrible condition. Don't have to go far to find that. But to find one that had never been paved was one that we worked hard to make certain that we can check that off our list. And so was able to ride down that street, talk with the residents there. They are immensely proud of the work that's going on. And so the CIP projects are working. It's working. And there were a lot of doubters, naysayers, who said that this was an idea whose time had not come. We have, as a council, have proven that notion wrong in every respect, from Parks and Rec to surfacing to major projects like Baltimore Street and Ann Street, Texas Street in the very near future. Working with our county commissioners, $1 million job there at Mill Road. Working together and leveraging resources has worked. And I'm just proud of this effort and proud of all that's going on here in the city of Mobile. That concludes my announcements. Any further announcements from any of my colleagues?
I just wanted to say that I will not be here next week. I'll be in Blacksburg, Virginia, visiting John Paul for a quick trip, and so I will not be at next Tuesday's meeting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Small, any? Ms. Richardson? Mr. Davis? Mrs. Gregory? Mrs. Rich? All right, well, do I hear a motion? Probably motion second that we would adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? None. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance today.